Hi, my name is Kate, and I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce a friend, Justin George, who is going to be running the marathon for Team Big Heart in memory of our son, Joey. Justin and I actually met on the worst day of my life, September 23rd, 2013. He was a first responder that came to the house the morning Joey passed away. What's interesting is that I don't actually remember him as a first responder or even the guy in the ambulance. I don't remember him here in the house or in the ambulance or really any of that, but I do remember him when we got to the hospital. I didn't have any family there yet, and he stayed in the room with me in the waiting room as Joe was being worked on in the trauma room, and kept me sane and together in the worst moment of my life. Following that, in the weeks, I think it was maybe weeks, maybe month? No, weeks.
It was like closer to 2 weeks, I think.
A few weeks after that, of course, my life had pretty much fallen apart, and there were memories and stuff just everywhere, but I remembered the kind man who was in the waiting room with me, just talking with me, keeping me company, again, keeping me sane during that morning. And I thought about him a lot, talked to my husband about him, my family, and I was about to reach out to him and try to find out. I actually didn't know his name. If I saw him on the street, I probably wouldn't even recognize what he looked like, but I just knew that he was someone who was there for me when I needed him. I was about to reach out and try to do some research to figure out who he was, and one day I received actually a Facebook message from him.
So it was interesting when we started talking about, sitting down like this in front of, a camera for an interview, when we started sharing the story or different angles, how this kind of came together, or the different perspectives that we had. It was interesting. Kate didn't get or never thought of how I saw it, and vice versa, and of the way that kind of portrayed of the day that I finally sent the message to Kate, or even the day of that I was actually already almost outside of the emergency room when I kind of stopped in my tracks, still resonating of hearing Kate in the waiting room, that I can't just leave right now, and I was supposed to return back to duty, or at least back to the station for a ride. My ride was actually there, that I waited inside because there was nobody else in the room. More of a, if it was my wife, I would hope that somebody would end up staying with my wife. So it was so I stayed. And once I left afterwards, and the days after that, it was more of a, as much as the traumatic event and the way that day happened was more of a resonating to me of, comparing all the things that I thought was a trouble or an issue or a complaint about would be a cakewalk or a vacation day for this woman. So I felt selfish to a point that it was, I felt bad that at one point I compared my worst day to what someone else's worst day would be. So it was a life-changing event for me in a positive way. And it was even when we were talking about meeting of, the message to reach out to this family was already put together, but I waited for a while. One, is it too soon? Two, is it too late? And what if I send this, and looking back, it's almost kind of comical to think of it, considering the relationship that we have now, that what if I send this message and this is not taken in one aspect, it's actually taken in the complete opposite? What if I'm to blame? Or what if these parents after something like that would, in their life, when they just want an answer or a reason, what if they're going to end up pointing the finger at me, or expect, maybe that would make them feel a little better about what happened because you can't have an answer or explain it. But what if that's going to happen, and I'm trying to reach out to help, and more so afterwards in hindsight to kind of put that past me as well, that to reach out to say I'm sorry and to thank them for giving me a different perspective. It was a big, I think you mentioned it was a risk. I never thought of it as a risk. It was more of a, I was tentative to do it, but.
So we could have come back and, you know, yelled at you.
Exactly.
Called you every name in the book, and if we had, you know, in our head thought that you were to blame for anything that day.
Right, and even if it's to say any first responder or anybody that works in emergency services is gonna, when they truly believe that they did everything you can, there's still a hanging balance of, but what if I tried, what if I did, what if we, it's still gonna happen. So this could have gone completely different if reaching out there, we could have been trying to get, not so a closure, I guess, for myself, but the whole message was just to let you know of, you know, how I felt and reach out to your family, but it could have closed a different way. So in that, which is almost taboo in this field, where this is just part of the job, it's part of the fire service, it's part of emergency services, it's part, you know, even a soldier deployment, that's going to happen. You don't, it's not forbidden or talked against, but to reach out and do something like this is, if you do this, then you do it for the next family and the next event and the next, and it just adds on. And the concern is that it builds and hangs on the person that's doing it. But it's become the exact opposite. So it's not, this isn't something that, you know, 20 years down the road, I'm gonna be so overwhelmed with all the traumatic events that this field carries, that it's more of, this has become more of a recommendation from me to other people that have to work with this, is that get involved or reach out. You know, it is a risk. Some families are gonna act that way, but it's been a tremendous help and relief. And to do, you know, that question of what else could I have done, now that we're talking about the marathon, that's my kind of stamp of, this is what I can do, this is what I can do, because I did everything, but it didn't turn out. So now I'm running the marathon for this group.